Welcome to Rosalind the Pet Psychic's podcast, the show where animal intuition meets untold stories. I'm Rosalind, your host and resident pet psychic. Each week, we dive into the unbelievable, the heartwarming, and sometimes the downright haunting tales from the animal world, told by the people who live them, whether it's a horse who knew too much and spilled the tea, a trainer who crossed the line, or a pet with a message from beyond. We're here to explore the deeper truths behind the stories that leave us wondering, what do our animals know that we don't? This program may include real names, places, and events when shared with consent, as well as stories that have been anonymized or fictionalized to protect the identity and safety of individuals. The content of this podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Views expressed by the host and guest are personal opinions and conjecture and should not be interpreted as fact or as professional advice. With some episodes may include educational insights or expert commentary, listeners are encouraged to use their own judgment and consult appropriate professionals when needed. Got a wild horse, dog, or cat story, breeding gone wrong, buyer beware, a riding mishap with a lesson? I want to hear it. If you're in the holistic or horse world and want to share your story or even promote your biz, head to rosalindthepetpsychic.com and text or email me. You might be featured on the podcast. Welcome back to part 2 of Scammed in the Saddle, a horse trader's lies. Thank you for coming with me on this journey with my client. She is going to go right into how they were getting the horse on the trailer and her heart was just broken by the things that the horse trader is fixing to do. So I'm going to let this story go on so we can get into it.
She actually yelled at me and yelled at my husband as well, that we were not suitable horse people, that we didn't know how to load horses on trailers, and that, she would take care of this. And I'm not going to go into great detail of what I saw after that. Just know that it was extremely ugly, what I saw from her and my horse that I had just started a journey with. I have nightmares of it. It was not any way professional, any way, shape, or form. All I cared about was getting him off that property. So we were able to get him in the trailer. We were able to get him home. But it was not anything that I ever want to see anyone do again when buying a horse. So this is why that you do all these things before you commit. You have to see the horse do these things. And you can't trust a good local name.
How many hours did it take y'all to get him loaded to get him home?
I would say it took probably 40 minutes or so.
Once you got him home, what other red flags and things were starting to happen?
His behavior was very off. We got him home. He was a great horse on the ground. However, in the stall, he was very upset. We called him the hay burner because he wouldn't stop. It was almost like stress eating. I've never seen a horse eat so much. He was very anxious, very spooky. He was so spooky that we couldn't even clean his stall with him in there without him panicking at times, just randomly spooking and panicking. So I knew right then and there, this is not a horse that I would even want to consider putting a saddle on and riding at this point. This is going to take a long time. He's really upset. This horse is very, very distraught, and I got to earn his trust. I got to make sure I take care of him, and this whole bad experience for the both of us, we've got to work through this together somehow. So I started doing groundwork with him. That's the one thing that he enjoyed. He really did. And it didn't take long for us to do really great free lunging sessions. And he would follow me. I've never had a horse that could free lunge, but he loved it. And that's where we started to grow. So I could begin to eventually saddle him up and maybe one day ride. His current state of mind, I knew that was not a possibility at that time. But I just want to make sure people also understand when you're looking at a grade horse, these sellers can twist the story any way they want to make it more emotionally binding for you. In my case, they took the name that I had disclosed to them of my heart horse and named, as far as I can tell, this horse with something that was very similar to play on my heartstrings and my emotions. It didn't really ring a bell with me until nothing lined up. There were many things that did not line up after we brought him home.
Let's get to that. When you brought him home, what started lining up and what lies did you uncover?
Let me think about this. It's a lot of information. So the first thing that I uncovered about him was that he had some health issues. He had some things going on that I wasn't quite sure what it was. He was off. He was definitely off behaviorally and in his movement. I had to investigate that more to find out, what's going on. Another reason I was like, I'm not quite sure I want to ride this horse. That didn't line up. Then we had the vet out and they disclosed to me that he was not 5 years old, that he was more like 15 years old. When I heard that, I can't explain the amount of pain in my heart when I found that out, because it was another inconsistency. So that was not right. His story, did not line up. I found out that, the story was he was supposed to be a friend that had him on consignment, and that couldn't have been possible, to be honest with you, because when he was born, quote unquote, 2018, which is not the truth because he was not a 5-year-old, the person who sold him to me, how do I say this, was incarcerated. There's no way she could have known him as a baby through a friend because she was not able. That was a very hard day for our family because we had solid evidence that this was not just your neighborhood liar. This is a hard criminal. This is someone that had actually, I found out, scammed many people across the United States and Canada and did serious time for it.
For the audience, have you ever been scammed or deceived like this in any of the horse world? If so, send me a message or comment on our social media platforms. You could just find me at Rosalind the Pet Psychic, and I'd love to hear your stories and maybe even feature you in an episode, because we need to get the word out. And I have a feeling after several people coming forward with similar situations, these guys probably have the same ammo. They have the same gaslighting processes, selling techniques, all of these things that my guest here has gone through. And the reason why we're doing this is because we don't want this to keep happening to other people. And we also want to keep everybody safe from, not even exposing you, but just getting the story out, because it's probably very similar in how they do things. Let's go in deeper. Y'all had an accident with his face. You had to have surgery. I mean, there's so many things that you went through. Tell me about some of those things and whenever you first tried to ride him.
Okay. We had him at our boarding barn for, I would say, probably 8 weeks when he had his accident. I was told that he was pretty low in the herd. I don't feel his accident really, an accident's an accident, but it's just a part of his story, and I'm happy to tell it. That's why also I'm here, is to tell the story, to make sure that, he's remembered. We had him turned out, and he got kicked in the face by one of the geldings. He had a skull fracture. He had more than a half a dozen bone chips removed out of his face. We had to load him on a trailer to get him to the horse hospital, which was an ordeal for him because he doesn't load well. He was well enough I could work with him and train him before his trip. So I was very proud of us that we were able to load him on a trailer and drive him up. So that was a huge success for us. And it took a lot of trust for him and I to work together to get that done. He went up my ramp and into my slant load. We drove over an hour to get there. And he actually, in the operating room, caused quite a bit of trouble. The vet came out to me and said, your horse is rather bad. He's lifting my vet techs off the floor. We cannot perform this surgery. He has no manners, none. We will need to anesthetize him, and he'll need to stay the night. So we're talking already a surgery, but now we have a horse that, his manners, he didn't like to travel. We all know that. I told you guys that. He was in such a stressful situation that if that's what we had to do, that's what we had to do. So yeah. So he had his surgery. He dealt with the anesthesia well. He woke up well, and we brought him home the next day. But yes, it was very hard for us, because that was a big ordeal for not only him, but our family too. It was very expensive. But again, accidents are accidents. But in the light of having a horse that has the manners that could potentially hurt somebody, that's us. It's another reason why I'm speaking up. People can get hurt.
So this is 8 weeks in. Have you ridden him at this point? Have you attempted to ride him?
No, ma'am. No, I had not, because I did not feel comfortable. It wasn't until April that I felt comfortable, after his wound healed, that I felt confident enough to ride him. And we did. It was a very quick ride. When I went to ride, he actually was shaking under saddle. I let him calm down. I encouraged him. I gave him a lot of praise, positive reward, and we walked forward. The feeling that I got from him is he wanted to explode. he wanted to explode. And I still encouraged him. We walked forward. This is all in about of, I would say, 45 seconds. All of a sudden, I felt this shift in his front left shoulder, and he went straight into a bucking fit. A very quick, short buck, and we went around in circles until I could emergency stop him. I'm very fortunate that I did not get thrown off. I was able to stop him, get him calm, and then once he was calm, I dismounted and praised him, because at that point, I knew this is not his fault. I could tell he was scared. I could tell that he hurt, and I just thanked him. I thanked him for telling the truth. I thanked him for showing me his truth, and that I understood that there was more going on, and I had suspected it, but that's the first time he showed me.
This is a great time for me to throw in some of the psychic stuff that I've already picked up on, and you can clarify if it's true or not, or get to it. So the one thing that kept coming up is his ferocious appetite is because, to me, he feels like he's a horse that had cancer. I don't know if did he have cancer?
No, not to my knowledge, but in my own self, I feel that.
I felt like whenever I heard that he had passed away, and I knew you didn't care if I had like read him from some of the postings and things, and I felt like he ended up having a fast tumor, and it was neurological in his head.
I believe that.
The other part is, so one of my dogs had cancer and had very active growing tumors, and that ferocious appetite, that burning through calories, that not being satisfied, the weird things around that those two have had. And this funny because the dog was gray and he's gray. They both had those similarities to me, and this was something going on that was building while you had him. And
yes.
so many of the other things, like this is why his joints wouldn't stabilize. This is also why, like, whenever you would saddle him, not only did he have the fear and that a fear and an attitude with it to brace up the attitude was to brace up the fear that, like, I can't deal with this, and it's this explosive stuff. His body was uncomfortable. He couldn't quite hold. Yeah, it's almost like he has a connective tissue disorder. So if I was to, and we're not vets, I'm not a vet, label things on him to make it make sense, it's like he had these mystery illnesses and things were just building on top of each other, and trying to get him supported. So what I would say is, like, he had more pathogens than not kind of going at him, and he did that, which means more than not, he didn't have enough nutrients and enough immune system fighting power to be able to deal with his body falling apart in a way. That's how it.
Yes. When you say his body fell apart, you were very, very close to what happened at the end. There was some happened on that changed dramatically and very quickly. And I can relate it to him literally falling apart. And our vets have never, I had 2 vets come out and do blood work, tests, biopsies. They had never seen anything like it before. He is truly an anomaly. They don't understand what happened to him, which is why I'm so happy to be talking to you, because I think we can try and put together some of the things that the vet can give us some insight on. While there's insight, there's no clear cut what happened. There's no clear-cut test that said he had cancer, but he literally started to fall apart.
Yeah, he feels like, it's like when I talk to people who have a very active autoimmune, and I'm a health coach, so very active autoimmune things going on that lead to other things. That's how his, like, blood and his body felt, is that there is just like, there's more bad than good going on in there. And then on top of that is, like, how do you stop it? Sometimes you cannot. He just feels like the ones that would get the lumps and tumors and things. And then those things, sometimes when they get going, and as a horse person, and y'all know this, like, it's hard to get some of those things to calm down. And I felt like he just his body didn't have a chance.
It didn't. And his blood work, everything came back with extremely high inflammation, white blood cells everywhere. Yes, it was everywhere. And they said they tested him for numerous things, but we don't have a pinpoint, but he was very ill. He was very ill, and the illness came on very suddenly. He was fine on a Monday. He was starting to fall apart by Friday. Like, it happened within that week. And it took him very quickly. And, we had a lot of tests done to see, is there anything we can do? Can we help him in any way, shape, or form? But in my heart, I knew that we were battling something that it was not like a contagious thing. This is not something that the other horses in the barn caught, or if it was, they would have, you know what I mean? This was specific to him. And I think his, whatever trauma, his body endured, it was more than modern medicine could handle to help him. If we would have biopsied the right place, we might have found cancer, but there was nothing conducive on the tests to pinpoint it. But with the white blood cells, the inflammation, he had white blood cells throughout his skin. I mean, it was through the dermis. I mean, it through completely. There was no explanation for it. They've never seen anything like it.
So on a soul level, would you like to know how this works? What part of this is what his soul was trying to accomplish?
Yes, I would be happy to hear anything you can share, how his journey at the end of all this looks compared to mine, because I know we went in on this journey together. So I'm very interested. Yes.
So because he's here now, in the psychic world, the soul wise, not a gray horse, as he puts it. He's more like a black or dark bay beauty. Also has to rest and recover, because if it wasn't for your compassion towards the end of his life, he would still think people are horrible. He and that's what he's in the soul process of learning. So would he reincarnate? Not today, not right now. Like he still has like healing to do in that soul journey, and they will go through that. When they have a hard life here, they get to that soul, they get to have peace. And if you had to put him in a physical way, the way he looks, he's like, oh, I would never be another gray horse again.
Tell him I'm probably not going to get another gray horse again.
He totally gets and understands it. The other thing is he couldn't keep doing this world. So the reason why his body got taken over so fast is because he just had to let go. And he knew you were safe enough and understood because
I did.
He also knew that even though he was a great experience and a hard experience, he wasn't an experience that needed to happen for a very long time. He knew he wasn't your horse. He was your horse, but he wasn't what you needed, what your soul craved.
He knew that he couldn't fulfill what I was looking for, and I was okay with that. I wanted to do what I could. He was my responsibility and my horse to take care of and love, and I was not going to, do anything more than what was best for him. And that was the only thing that I had in my heart, was to make sure I did what was best for him.
And because you did not have this energy of saving him from himself and from what everybody else had done to him, he knew that he could leave. He knew he could bow out. He knew that at some point it didn't have to make sense, because it would just give you peace, because there was so many pieces in his life.
Can you tell me any little tidbits about his past?
You know what's interesting is I don't feel like he was 15. I feel like he was older.
We were told that. We had two different opinions, and the second opinion was older. They said maybe like 20 to 20. They even said between 22 to 25, which was such a big jump from 15.
Yeah. That part of that feels like his body condition just was not good and couldn't hold up, and so that aged him. But he also just did not feel 15. Where did he come from? Like where the other part is well, let me say this first. The reason he was so challenging is because he was so uncomfortable. But we know this. That horse had not been started. He has had a life. Was he easy, and did he have certain people that had him? And I'll say this too. He is only showing me one or two homes. But he's showing me that he aged out. He aged, and his body condition took him out of the game. Was he loved as a horse when he was born? He was, had a lot of, because he's not a quarter horse. But you knew that. He's not, he feels like a thoroughbred mix thing.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. I feel like he was a little bit of a thoroughbred and maybe quarter horse mix. Yeah. He was sold to me as a quarter horse, even though grade.
Backyard. He came from a backyard, a family breeding situation. I call it that because I wouldn't want to say like backyard. where he was loved, and then he's cantankerous and a little spicy and ended up getting sold and trained, and he went somewhere else for just another pasture horse, and would kind of get started and left behind, and just they just weren't like active horse people, because he was challenging, but he didn't have a show life. He had a riding life, and it was only like, did you pick this straw to ride him, because he has a lot of spunk and this and that. And he lived through, but he didn't, his physicalities got in the way of him. When they couldn't take care of him anymore, that's when she got him. And it was like, we can't take care of him anymore. And this is what he's showing me. And that's how he got picked up. And like, and they also knew he had physical stuff, but wanted him to go to a good home. But he just his body kept falling apart. I don't even think the people that sold him knew exactly what was going on with him, but they just couldn't keep taking care of him. Because when I found out, he didn't have enough weight on him.
Yeah, he looked okay when I purchased him. Looked a lot better while we cared for him. I didn't realize how atrophied his body truly was until he got good care. What we found out was that he had what's called a leg length disparity in his back right leg, which means his back right leg was a little shorter than his left. And it also was caused by what's called a obliquity in his hip. His hip was sheared, which means pushed forward. His right hip was shoved forward. It wasn't up or down, it was pushed, which is what caused his leg lengths to be short. Which also, if you can imagine, if your right side of your hip is shoved forward, that's going to offset your spine.
Mm-hmm.
His spine was crooked, which also caused a bulge in his front left shoulder. So you kind of have to look at it as a diagonal, which is when I rode him, which is why I felt that kind of click. And then he went into a bucking fit because of that shift in his shoulder. He was completely out of alignment. I had chiropractors out numerous times to work on them, on his shoulder and his hip. And I actually went to school up in Michigan last September to learn myofascial release and bring his case to, teachers who have great experience in working on horses and this. And they looked at his pictures and they were like, he has major work to do. So, I learned a little bit and brought what I learned back with myofascial release back home. And I tried to help him, but he was in so much pain on that side. It was almost hard to work on him. I did what I could, but I could tell that I just wanted him to be comfortable. And after the chiropractor came back the last time, in fact, she even said, he's in so much pain. Like, I don't even feel comfortable doing this type of work, maybe massage, things like that. But it got to be to a point where we just needed him to be as comfortable as possible. And we did everything we could to get him there. But seeing that he was older, way older than we anticipated, I didn't find out that he could have potentially been in his 20s until he passed by looking at the groove in his tooth and truly seeing that and getting opinions. So, it's hard to say. Again, he's great, but the evidence is there that he was much older. So not only with his back and, his hips, but, with the inflammation and what came back in the test. So, yeah, I think that, we had quite the journey together. And, I hope that, he is at peace and I love him and he taught me so much. And I hope that he can teach our listeners too, because I think he knew he was in a bad situation and we worked together to make a bad situation, a learning experience for us. And I hope for others too. I'm not out here to try to get anybody or, try to, point fingers. I'm not that person. I've learned so much, and moving forward into my life with horses, I'm still looking for a horse out there that is my fit. And I truly believe that I will find another horse like my heart horse that I'd lost. I believe he's out there somewhere in some capacity. I know he's in heaven, but there's another horse like him somewhere. And I'm looking forward to my next journey. And that's going to be it. But I'll take my horses with me wherever I go.
So let me give you some really good stuff on this. The reason why you took myofascial release is because he would have needed something to that extent, because that's a very, as a massage therapist, that's a very amazing therapy that you can do to shift things. His hip is messed up because of an accident that tweaked his body. His pain was in his thoracic towards his rib cage that
Yes.
had, and it's almost like when you would put the saddle on him or try to do something, his back would come up because he had to use that area to brace his hip. And then it would
Correct.
also compensate into his shoulder.
Right where his saddle sat, right behind his withers. And that was his point of pressure, was right there. Yes.
Yes. So the other part of it is, the learning part is you get to take this with every single horse. That's why no life as far as animals is wasted, because we learn from each and every one of them how to get better at for the next one. You know, we learn that from our dogs, our horses, cats, everything. Like this is also part of why pet psychic stuff is so good, is because it will help you elevate your learning, and it opens up doors so you can see other things that you might not have thought about or get educated in another way to help your animals. And so you'll use the myofascial stuff. You'll be able to like do things with it. You'll also learn, because nobody's any different than me as far as it comes with like medium stuff. I've just played and practiced enough. So when you go and find another horse, if that energy resonates that, oh, something's wrong with it or this or that, you're going to tap into that and you're going to navigate it in a good way. And you've already put other people in your wheelhouse to help you through your next purchase process to make sure that you have a support system, because we need support systems on buying animals and things like that. And what do we want and how do we want this to feel? That's why I always encourage people to have a pet psychic reading before they go do a purchase or even start looking, so we can release some of the energies that maybe aren't beneficial, that may be carried on from the past horse. Any guilt, you don't have to transfer that into a new animal coming in. And this is a journey that you had to go on. My heart goes out to you for how much you've paid and spent.
Thank you.
But I'm so excited because we have another person that has much more knowledge, much more things that you never thought about, that you get to trickle back into the horse world and educate people more and find ways of helping the horses heal. And you gave this horse so much love and compassion. He didn't leave this earth with a bad human taste in his mouth, if that makes sense. And so that helps his soul heal on the other side even more. I love it. Is there anything else that you want to add, or do you want to like just a little 30-second blip of your takeaway and what to look for and how you're going to go use what you've learned to purchase a new horse? Yeah,
just to kind of wrap up, for everyone looking at a new horse, research your sellers, even if it means a quick Google search. Can't always find everything, but you might find something. Ask within your local horse community. If I would have just done some simple asking around, hey, have you heard of this person, so-and-so, and how do you feel? Do you feel that they're trustworthy? I would have learned something. But I didn't. I went on what I had heard locally and for years, that it's a good family barn, so I was like, cool. Make sure that you have your own PPE, have your vet there, pay for your own vet, pay for your own PPE. Very, very important. Be sure you ride the horse. Make sure you go back and ride the horse again. Don't just stick with, I rode it once, we're going to bring it home. I think it's important that you check horses a few times within a couple of weeks. I would say decide within about 2 weeks, maybe visit 2 or 3 times. Okay. That way you're certain and you're sure that you're seeing the same horse every time. I also think it's important that, let me think here, load the horse. Make sure you put it on a trailer. Okay. That's very important. Make sure it's what you want. Some horses, they're really good at loading, and other horses are so-so. I've purchased horses that needed some work, and, through training, I'm an animal trainer. I have been my whole life. So I don't mind working with animals and showing them the way, but just be solid in what you want. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be like me, where I just kind of let them take the reins for me, because that's where I found myself, in a situation I wasn't aware of, because I trusted and I let them take my reins. So don't let them do that to you. Other than that, I mean, I think that's pretty much most of it. I want to end on the note with my horse. I want to thank him, and I want to thank Jesus for guiding me and being there and showing me what it's truly like to unconditionally love. Sometimes loving can be very hard. Even if it's any situation, it's hard to love unconditionally when we're faced with challenges. But my horse truly taught me to love unconditionally. And, I know that is one of the greatest teachings, is to love unconditionally. And I thank Jesus for that. So while it was a very hard journey, I hope that you learned from it. And I know I did. And that his story can go out there in the world and help other people and other horses to make sure that they're fit with the right home. I wouldn't have, go ahead, have changed anything. I don't want to make it sound like I made the wrong choice, because after all of this, I learned so much. It's so valuable to me. I'm forever changed. Yeah, I definitely am ready for my next journey.
I love that. So the takeaways that I got from this, if you're dealing with a horse trader or people in general selling horses, if they're pushy, gaslighting, really putting too much pressure, like aggressive car salesmen, run that, yes. Or if maybe you're brave enough to even say something and see if they'll take some of the pressure off. If they just end up adding more pressure, that's not your people. Those horses, and FYI, do not feel sympathy for these horses. They will be okay. They always find the right homes, the right places. It all levels out in the soul world. It might not exactly level out here, but it will level out in the soul world. So that's something to keep in mind if you can't save a horse, because you're not supposed to always save these horses. You're not always supposed to be in situations that could be worse than where you were if you hadn't, the whole job is to learn from these things and keep moving forward. And things happen. Sometimes it's the universe is like, oh no, we're going to put this horse in your life anyways, but you just navigate it. Don't beat yourself up through the process. And then also just keep loving these animals and finding your group of people to be around to figure out how you want a horse and what kind you want. And pause and take a breath and step away, or go home and take a day or two before you even go look at these things. Give yourself some boundaries on how to maneuver, how you really want to think about this, and how do you think and how you make decisions. And if you know you're a quick decision maker and sometimes that hasn't worked, then say, I am not making a purchase today. I will go home and think about this. And a really respectful horse seller will understand all of this. And you can tell them, or you don't have to tell them. It's up to you. Feel your way through it. The other thing is do you have anything else to add, or are we wrapping up?
Yeah. Bring a friend, bring 2 friends. Make sure you got a buddy that has a good eye. More eyes, the better. Make sure that you are leaving your emotions in a place where they're not going to sway your decision. Sometimes I think we see a horse and we're like with mine, I'm like, he looked so much like my heart horse that I just broke down. You've really got to see the horse for what it is. And quite honestly, it's not about color. It's about connection. Okay. So remember that. That's so important. It's about connection. Connect with the horse. Do your research. That's what I've got.
So it's not about color. It's about connection. And speaking of connection, you can find me on Rosalind the Pet Psychic. If you have a horse horror story, I just love saying that, and you want a psychic ending, please let me know. Reach out to me on my socials or the website, Rosalind the Pet Psychic. I would love to hear, even if it's not a horror story, if it's a story that we can learn something from and it was an experience you had, let me know. I would love to hear your stories and possibly feature you on this podcast. So thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.